Just about everyone watching this has lost someone that they have loved or cared about, either from cancer or a car crash or just plain old age. The truth is that everyone is going to die someday. But what happens to a person after death? Do we all go to the same place? And can we see our loved ones from the place that we go when we die? Only two things are for certain in life. You're going to pay taxes and you're going to die. Join me after the break as we explore this topic on today's episode of Devine Revelations. Hey guys, it's Brandon with Knowing God. Our mission here at Knowing God Ministries is to update, educate, and entertain believers and non-believers alike with the good news of Jesus Christ. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible around the globe, and to do that, we're going to need your help. For just pennies a day, will you consider becoming a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description? Any and all donations are applied back into the ministry so that we can continue to bring quality content while spreading the gospel to people around the world just like you. Thank you for your donation, and now back to Devine Revelations. Before we can answer this question, it is very important to make a distinction between the death of a believer and the death of a non-believer in Christ, because the Bible teaches us that there is two very different things that happens when one dies. Depending on what we do in our lives, and if we prepare for death in the proper manner, depends on what happens to us after death. Let me explain. The first thing that happens when we die is our spirit leaves our body. This is the same for believers and non-believers alike. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 6, it says, "And the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it." This says that after we die, our bodies will immediately start decaying and return to the dust, but our spirit will return to God who gave it. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone is going to heaven. What this verse is saying is that our spirit will go back to the hands of God for Him to do with as He pleases. At this point, we no longer have any control over where our spirit goes because it's in the hands of God and subject to His authority. The Bible teaches us that those who rejected Jesus will then go to a place of holding called Hades, which is the same as hell. But those who believe in Jesus and have lived a life of faith, their spirit will go to be with God until the second coming. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 14 through 17 says this, "For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so will God bring with Him those who died in Jesus. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are dead. For the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. And then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord." These verses are telling us three things. First, that when Jesus returns, He will bring those who have died believing in Him with Him, that is, their spirits and souls. And the next thing we learn is that the dead in Christ will be raised first, that is, their bodies. And then the ones who are still alive will be caught up with Him in the clouds. The last thing this verse is telling us is that this will be the first time that our spirit will be united with our new resurrected bodies. This is what we call the first resurrection. After that, we learn that Jesus and His believers will reign on the earth for a period of 1,000 years. Revelation 20 verse 6 says, "Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with Him for 1,000 years. This is called the millennial reign." Now remember when I told you that the spirit of non-believers went to a place called Hades? What happens next will determine the severity of their judgment. And yes, everyone will be judged differently according to the books revealed at the great white throne judgment. Revelation 20 verse 11 through 14 says this, "Then I saw a great white throne, and Him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things that were written in the books. The sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to their works. The death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire." Notice the distinction between death and Hades. This word for death in Greek is nekros, which means spiritually dead. That is, the bodies of the spiritually dead. This is the second resurrection. Believers will not have to take place in the second resurrection. Now, remember, Hades is the holding place for non-believers' spirit. So Hades gave up the spirits that were there to meet with their resurrected bodies, to be judged according to the books, and finally be casted into the lake of fire. So can our dead loved ones still see us after they have gone to be with the Lord? Of course they can. Hebrews 12 verse 1 says, "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run the endurance of the race that is set before us." This cloud of witnesses isn't talking about the people who are on earth. That's why it says cloud of witnesses, alluding to the clouds as where these witnesses are residing. So what do you think? Does this video clear up any misconceptions you may have had about death? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like this video, you'll probably love this next one. But until next time, may God bless you and your family.